Hi, good morning. I'm Ting Wei from I Promise University Technology Mara. So this presentation's theme as Surviving Your Viva Voce workshop is intended to be disseminated to PhD students in UiTM who are going to face their oral presentations and Viva examination in 2020. The first thing that I wish to discuss about is your postgraduate journeys. Now, whether it's bittersweet or it's really full of joy and happiness. The first question that I wish to inquire is if you have published any articles in the Q1 journals. Now, if you do, congratulations, especially those in the scientific stream. Now, if you have not, then perhaps you could share with me through emails on why you have yet to publish in Q1 journals. Now, commonly, there may be a few factors. First of all, it could be that your topic is very difficult, it's very challenging, it's one of those first in the world that you are looking into. Alternatively, it could be that you are not provided with sufficient facilities or infrastructures to facilitate your PhD or master programs. So if so, you can share with me and we can actually discuss and highlight with the higher management of UiTM. Now, thirdly, of course, is human factors. Now, are you working hard enough? How much time have you devoted in your study, especially PhD project, right? Now, is that 6 hours a day for 3 years? Then you expect that you can have a very good result for publications in the Q1 journals. And what about your teachers? Are your teachers guiding you, helping you? If they do, that's all right. If they do not, now what should you do? The second question that I wish to ask is that have you ever written an impactful articles? Now note that an impactful articles does not necessarily means that it is published in high impact factor journals. It simply means that the article that you have written, the research work that you have been working on for all this year produces a very impactful influence in the society. Now this can be reflected easily either by journal citation or by having industry and society adopting your work, right? Now further, do you really understand the content of the articles thoroughly? Is the publications of the articles a primary efforts of your lecturers? Do you really understand the content of what you are doing? Or are you just a pair of hands instead of brain? So this is something that you may want to ask yourself. Of course, again, you are welcome to discuss with me. Now, the next question can be sensitive, especially to those who pursue PhD and master, uh, and yet is holding a lecturer position. Now, have you done the work, or someone else has been employed to help you to conduct or to execute most of the works? So if all the works are done by you, I wish to congratulate you, and I hope that you have learned a lot of this hardship. Now, if someone, for example, research assistant, has been employed to help you throughout the study, perhaps you really need to ponder what is the meaning of pursuing your PhD and master degree at this moment of time, since you do not have enough time to be devoted to conduct your own study. Now, this issue is not new. It occurs in almost every country, whereby lecturers, especially those who have a certain level of authority, they are able to engage research assistants or research officers to do the work for them. Or they even can engage bachelor degree students. For those PhD holders, they may engage master students to do the work, right? So this is some question that you may want to think about before you graduate, whether you deserve to be graduated. Now, apart from work, from journals, article writings, now spending 2 to 3 years or maybe more in UiTM, have you made friends along the way? So, do you have good relationship with your fellow classmate, either master or PhD student? Uh, do you have a good relationship with your supervisor, lecturers, research assistant, technicians, or even cleaner in your laboratory? And have you impressed your supervisors? Definitely not from your physical appearance, but rather from the work, the contributions that you have been given, yeah, to the project. So you may ask, is it necessary for me to impress my supervisors? Now, there's no true or false answer to it. Personally, I feel that uh, you may not need to impress your supervisor, but at least you need to keep them communicated about your progress, and you need to establish a good relationship through two-way communication regularly with your supervisor. And definitely a supervisor must understand his or her roles as the mentor. He or she must be able to guide you, must be willing to guide you, of course must have a certain level of love for you, right? Otherwise, working together will be a torture for both of you. Are you facing this problem whereby you are not in good relationship with your supervisor? If so, you may want to think again how to rectify the relationship. I believe there's a way to rectify. Of course, it requires mutual efforts, not just from the student, but the supervisor, him or herself, must also work on the relationship seriously. So throughout the PhD and master studies, have you ever asked what have you gained? Have you learned about new knowledge? Have you made good friends? Or meeting good lecturers? Have you ever attend conferences, seminar, workshop that benefit you? Uh, is there anything in UiTM that has motivated you? Is there anything in UiTM that has helped you to build your career or to build your personality? Now, having asked yourself, what have you gained and how much have you gained, perhaps you should think about what have you contributed. Now, what have you contributed to your PhD or master project? Now, what have you contributed uh, to the relationship between you and the supervisor or between you and the classmate, right? Now, what have you contributed to your faculty or institute? And what have you contributed to the university? Or are you just gaining but with minimal contribution? Are you receiving financial support from a supervisor or university? Now, if so, you may again weigh against your contribution versus the financial input that has been given to you. Now, coming to this point where you are about to graduate and facing the Viva exam, you may want to ask yourself, am I better than my former classmate with just a bachelor degree qualification? If you're not better than them in knowledge, perhaps you should ask why, and you should also investigate why you are not better than them in knowledge. So pursuing PhD and master, I think is one of the shortcuts to obtain knowledge and skill within the shortest time. But yet, if you are still not better than your classmate with just a bachelor degree, you may really need to figure out what are the factors that has hindered you from obtaining new knowledge, from polishing or shaping new skills, so that you are better off in your future career development. Now, having had so many questions in mind, now let's take a look how to survive Viva examinations. Now, first of all, of course, you need to understand about UiTM policy and culture. Uh, what is the durations of your oral presentations, and how long will it be for the Q&A sessions, and how many examiner, be it internal or externals, and all others protocols that UiTM may be implemented. Prior attending the Viva, perhaps you should read your thesis, understand your thesis a little bit more, and obtain and collect all the updated informations. Keep it in mind uh, so that you can answer or reply to the examiner requests. And you should design your PowerPoint in accordance to the postgraduate school's format. And the general rules of thumb is that for 30 minutes presentations, you may wish to present about 30 slides. So it's about 1 minute per slide. So you should not have 100 slides or 150 slides, whereas the durations of presentation allocated is only 20 to 30 minutes. And about the PowerPoint, uh, it is best for you to highlight in point form rather in details, unless you could not really remember details. And broadly, examiner tends to be negative, right? So they may look at your thesis macroscopically as well as microscopically. So you may be doing some qualitative research, but the examiner may ask you from the perspective of quantitation. So you need to get ready for possible examiner questions. It could be as simple as a definition of a scientific term. For example, the examiner may ask you, what is pH? Since you determine pH of many chemical solutions. So commonly students may reply, pH is minus log concentration of proton. The examiner may say wrong. So indeed, this minus log concentration of protons could be wrong. So you really need to study in depth about the sciences that you are pursuing so that you are able to tackle the examiner questions, especially good examiner's questions. We should also think about what are the probable questions that examiner may pose. And you should model all the answer. Try to memorize it so that at least you have some weapon in your hand. Now, when similar or identical questions are posed to you, at least you can answer, 60 to 90% of it. So that will be fine. Now, most students only rehearse by themselves, but actually I will advocate for you to rehearse in front of a big group of friends, right? Now, speaking in the public is different from speaking to yourself. So there are more pressure when you speak in the public, especially during oral examination. So the psychological stress is different. And also you may feel tongue-tied. Even a simple sentence you may not be able to deliver. So I will advise you to rehearse a few times at least in front of friends or family members so that you get used to the attention. And during the Viva, bring a hard copy. Yeah, bring a hard copy of thesis, and the hard copy must be exactly the same as those that you have given to internal and external examiners, so that this will ease your reference now during your oral examination. Now the examiner will never expect you to memorize everything. So sometimes you may forget about facts that you have written. You can actually refer to the hard copy. Now more importantly, just that the night before the Viva, you may want to apply some face masks so that you will look younger and fresher during the Viva. And I think you should also get a very good night's sleep. There's nothing to worry about because you are the one who conduct the experiment, who do the research, who write the articles, who write the thesis, who draw the figure, who tabulate the informations, right? Unless this is not done by you, which I have highlighted in my earlier slide. If everything is done by you, I don't see the point that why you need to worry, right? Unless you know that there are many errors in the thesis, there are content that you don't really understand, and yet you wish to submit the thesis just for the sake of getting the PhD degree or the master degree. But if you are totally satisfied with the thesis and your supervisor is very happy about your progress, I really don't see why you will feel stressed about the Viva. So in short, I just wish to tell you that you should enjoy the Viva. Enjoy it with your examiner, enjoy it with your supervisor who will be there, enjoy it with the postgraduate schools members, they will be there helping you. So it's a very important day for you. And you should, feel joyful about it. And you shouldn't feel stressed because you know the content best. You are the one who do everything, and you know inside out of every page of your thesis and articles. I believe you can answer all the questions of the examiners. So during the Viva, apart from oral presentation, so during the Q&A session, you should listen carefully about the question asked. Take some time to think. Do not necessarily, to reply in 1 second or 1 microsecond. You can think for a while before you answer the questions. If you feel that you do not have adequate knowledge to reply, perhaps you can discuss with the examiners about the answer that you have given, whether it's acceptable or not acceptable. And from there, you can conclude your answer, right? So Viva doesn't mean that you should answer within a split second, right? You can actually take some time to think about it. You can make use of the whiteboard or the blackboard to illustrate what you really mean to the examiners. So take a breath, give yourself some time before answering the questions. Unless your examiner is very violent, they wish to have you, reply within 1 nanoseconds. Otherwise, I don't see there will be any issue in Q&A session. Most of the examiners are friendly. And during the Viva, you should try to hide your weakness, especially technical weakness, and try to project your strength to the examiner. Of course, if an examiner is very thorough in his checking of your data, of your thesis and articles, he or she may be able to detect your weakness. And then coming back to the purpose of pursuing PhD and master, isn't it why we wish to pursue higher degree is to overcome our weakness? If you still have weakness at this moment of time, do you think you should attend Viva, or you should first resolve all your weaknesses prior to graduations? Now remember, we may not be able to answer all the questions. Now, out of 10 questions, there may be one or two questions that you may not be able to answer fully. What you need to do is just admit. And you should also return home and study more about it, and perhaps keep your examiner informed about uh, what is the possible solutions to his questions. So that will help you to upgrade your knowledge and also overcome the weaknesses that you have. So you really need to admit when needed, right? So there's no point hiding the weaknesses. Well, it's easier to admit and overcome by studying or by learning from other people's. And during Viva, during your oral presentation or Q&A session, try to establish a very good eye contact with your examiner, with the chairperson, with the lecturers or the postgraduate school members in the examination room. And you should try to speak with a steady voice and loud enough for them to hear and clear enough. Speak slowly. You do not need to speak very fast. Slow and steady, as long as every one of us understand, will do, right? And try to be a little bit more interesting, where your voice carries intonation rather than just a piece of dead tone. Now, for questions that you may not be able to answer as you can't remember certain facts of your experiment, just feel free to refer to the thesis and remember to ask the examiner to turn to the page that you would like them to look into, right? So there's nothing wrong for you to refer to the hard copy of your thesis. So as long as it helps you to explain the question or explain your answer to the examiner. During the Q&A session, one of the common scenario is that the examiner may propose another scope of study for you. So you need to bring his or her attention back to your scope of study. So prior to the Viva, or I would say prior to the graduation, you may want to relook at the scope of your study to see whether it's worth or is there sufficient, how shall I say, to be granted a PhD degree or master degree. So if your scope of study is too simple, lack of novelty, Uh, Most likely, a lot of examiners will insist that you should rework or you should carry out a little bit more experiments so that you can meet the standard or the meaning of post-graduations. And expect a long session of your oral examination. So it may be half an hour if you know your content very well and your work is novel, especially for PhD project, but it may take 2-3 hours. If you have a lot of errors and you cannot understand your topic and you cannot speak well, or you can't even form or construct a sentence without much grammatical errors, then you really need to expect a long session and be ready with the outcome of examination. So at the end of the Viva, having gone through your project with your lecturer and supervisor, having gone through the Viva, preparing the thesis, PowerPoint, articles, you may really need to ask yourself who you are. Uh, why do you want to obtain the PhD degree or master degree? And what is the purpose? Are you really qualified for it? Have you ever had this thought that you think that you will not fail because of blah blah blah? Now this question I should leave it to all the students to think about it. In your mind, have you ever had 1 second that thinks that you will not fail at all? And you will definitely pass your PhD and master degree no matter how badly done. Having completed the Viva and oral examination, perhaps you should think about how happy will you be if you are being awarded with PhD degree especially or master degree. So going through the Viva, you will realize a few things. Whether are you able to answer question? Do you really understand the science or the concept of your articles and thesis? And how good is your writing? Are you able to write a 200-word abstract without concept error and grammatical errors? So all these things will come into mind. And if you are already being awarded with a PhD degree, how happy will you be if you can't even answer much questions from the examiner during the Viva? For me, the most important question of the day at the end of the Viva is, what have you really learned uh, in this number of years when you pursue your PhD degree or master degree? Well, I think for me, if we can live until 75 years old, spending a few more years polishing up our master degree or PhD degree, I think is worth it, rather than graduate and yet not having much details retained in our head. So you may have a doctor title, but you will find yourself one day in a very stressful position whereby you cannot deliver, but yet you have a very critical and important titles being awarded to you. Now, what is my main worry from my past experience? My past experience tells me that nothing is absolute. You could belong to the category of students whereby after graduation you will work harder to prove yourself and to contribute to the society. Of course, there will be another population of students whereby uh, they do not polish up their technical, scientific skills, but instead they mess up the society, right? By having these opportunities to cling on certain position in a company, uh, instead of doing good to the company and the society, they tumble it. They create stress and unnecessary negative environments for many of us. So it's my great pleasure to have the opportunity uh, to speak to you and to present my thoughts about PhD Viva or Master Viva. I think what most important for me is to help you to realize you need to study hard and later on continue to study harder so that you can build your technical strength. Now, with a good technical strength, then you'll be able to develop your career either in the industry, in the academic, in the research, or in the entrepreneur's arena. Without the technical expertise, you may be able to cling on high positions because you have a doctorate title, but you may not be able to go so far, or you may bring negative influences if you are not of the right character or right attitude to make full use of what we have given to you. Now, having said so much about research study, postgraduate degree, oral examination and Viva, being awarded with a PhD degree, being called as a doctor or professor, perhaps after this number of years of studies, apart from knowledge, apart from journals, thesis, or intellectual property, you may want to ask yourself, what have you done along, these few years? I think most of you may have family. You are the wife of a husband or husband of the wife. So of course you need to invest a lot of time to take care of your family. I do understand. Apart from that, have you ever thought of stop eating meat? As we are educated, I think we know that living objects, they are alive, they feel pain. So have you ever thought of stop eating meat? You know, you may be not young. Do you think if you start now, it's still on time? And have you ever thought of start taking care of the environment? Not smoking or drinking alcohol? Have you ever visited homeless animals? It could be dogs, it could be cats, rabbits. So have you ever think of making some donation to those homeless animal shelter? So are you still not taking care of your health? Do you still go party? Do you still smoke or drinking alcohol in silence? And are you still using non-biodegradable plastic or biodegradable plastic? Now for guys, are you still gender biased? Or maybe for female also. Sometimes they look down on the male, right? So how to resolve this biased behavior? Do you still look down on the poor? Now, at this time, you're about to get your PhD. Do you feel that you are one class above all? You are the better species? You are the higher class species? Have you ever talked to the cleaner in UiTM? Have you ever said thank you to them? Have you ever helped them? Perhaps just by giving a few empty bottles for them to recycle to earn some small bucks? And do you still look up to the rich and famous? Now, when you talk to us as a professor, you greet us. Do you greet the same way to those who are not rich, not so famous, or poorer? Or when you look at us, you just feel excited because we have a value that you perceive that can help in your career. Have you ever made any donation? Now, I'm not asking for 1 million ringgit donation. It could be 1 ringgit. It could be 50 cents. It could be 10 ringgit. Right? Have you gone home? At this point, I'm weak in it because I also seldom go back to my hometown in Malacca. So I'm also working hard, just like you. Lastly, I think before this lecture ends, now, for those who are in science stream, or those who are in business or art stream, I think scientific thinking is always being installed in your mind. So my last question to you is that, can you judge a situation scientifically, not emotionally? In other words, I'm trying to ask you to be fair when you execute a task. So with that, I will end my presentation. Now, I welcome all of you to email to me if you have any inquiry, or you think that the point that I make is not right, it's offensive, it's definitely not to what you want. So just feel free to write to us. Then we can always discuss together, right? So with that, I wish you all the best in your PhD and master degree study, and hope that you will continue to learn. Focus more on your work. Focus more on your work quality rather than focus on others people's. With that, I end my presentation. Thank you for your attention.